Hi, everybody. My name is Anna Sazonov. I'm Ukrainian, and I'm also part of our organization that's called Ukrainian Patriot. First of all, I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch 20 Days in Mariupol. I know it wasn't an easy movie to watch. It was difficult, very graphic pictures in that movie. But unfortunately, this is the reality that is happening right now in Ukraine. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I would like to kind of to answer some of the questions, very great questions that you shared with me. So I was born in Ukraine, raised in Israel, moved to the U.S. about 7 years ago, and worked in the nonprofit field. And one of the organizations that I led was the Columbia Jewish Federation, and that's how I got to Columbia. So I'm very familiar with the city. Some of you I met in person, so some of you know me. I also participate in Mayor Rickensman's podcast, so you can check it out and hear more about my history and kind of my involvement in the city. When the war in Ukraine started, I became very much involved because my family is still there. My parents moved back to Ukraine several years ago, so they still live on the western side of Ukraine. So for me, it's very personal to my heart. But on top of that, this war should matter to everybody because this is kind of like an existential threat on democracy and freedom, not only for Ukrainian people, but also for us as people who live in a democratic state. So I do want to encourage you to keep yourself very much involved with what's happening, because if Ukraine will fall, that's going to threaten us as well. Now, I got involved with Ukrainian Patriot after last September of 2022. I went to visit my family, yes, during a wartime. And one thing led to another, and I find myself on the front lines. I mean, about 2 kilometers, so less than a little bit over a mile from the active shooting from the Russian, from the lines themselves of the war. We were in a community that called Izium, in a city that called Izium, that was liberated 24 hours before we arrived there. So when we arrived to the community, and I was wearing bulletproof vest, a helmet, because it was very spicy area, as we call it, I met people that were under occupation for about 7 months. So we're talking about a community that was disconnected from water, electricity, the world, and you've seen those scenarios in the movie. So that's how they lived for about 7 months. And then they saw us. I was the only Ukrainian speaking person on that mission. We had 11 volunteers from all over the world. We provided them food, water, connection, and hope. And that's how I got involved with Ukrainian Patriot. And following that, coming back to the US, I decided to resign from my position as the executive director of Columbia Jewish Federation and take more leadership and volunteering position with Ukrainian Patriot. And I was back and forth US Ukraine, again, moving to the front lines of Ukraine and providing one of 5 pillars, or all the 5 pillars that the organization is providing. So the 5 pillars that we work with is humanitarian aid. So that includes water, food, whatever is needed, winter gear, clothing, all of this, protective gear. So we support some of the military units, provide them with bulletproof vests, helmets, because the supply is very low right now. Because again, there's a lot of active military, and including will also help different volunteers to make sure that they're protected whenever they go to the east or the south of Ukraine. So medical assistance, so we support hospitals, we support clinics, we support doctors to make sure that they have whatever equipment they need in order to take care of others. And you saw how fragile doctors are, and they are the true heroes. They were operating hospitals and operating outside with no equipment, with the worst conditions ever. So we're there to make sure that their process and what they're doing while they're saving lives, they have everything that they need. We're also working on PTSD and psychological assistant. Right now, we're working in communities that been through a severe PTSD, post-traumatic experience, and we need to help them as much as possible so they will be able to continue live their life. So the entire community of Ukraine, the entire country is traumatized, and including Valentina, including myself. When I came back to the US, I also experienced some PTSD that I still carry with me until this day. So whenever there is different explosive, whenever there is an airplane, stuff like this, and it makes me feel very uncomfortable. And the last pillar we work on, it's rebuilding Ukraine. So we already start rebuilding Ukraine. We're not stopping. We're not waiting for the war to be over. People need to have somewhere to live, or animals need to have a shelter. And this is what we do. So this is Ukrainian Patriot for you. Just one thing, I'm going to go back to my experience in Izum. So while we were there, while we were providing humanitarian aid, we also evacuated a family with us, a mom and two kids, 6 and 8, two girls. So while we were waiting for them, we're outside waiting in the dark. It was already sunset because it was September, so the sun was setting pretty early. And then they had the security team at certain point said, everybody helmets on and find a spot that you're going to jump to and make sure that there are no explosives there. There's no mine there because the entire area was mined. That is the moment that you actually hear the incoming. You hear the missiles so close to you, and you don't know if you're going to survive or not. In that moment, the family steps out of the house. We put them in the car, and we start driving as fast as we can to save our life. Because as you've seen, the Russians targeting they're targeting civilian population. They're also targeting humanitarian missions. So whenever they see a sign of vans, then it looks like a convoy of humanitarian aid mission, they're going to blow us. They're going to target us, and they're going to take us down. They don't care who it is. We were driving as fast as we can. The driver throws his phone at me and asks me, what direction should I go? Should I go right or should I go left? I tell him, go right. This is the right direction. And thank God we chose right, because left was straight to the arms of the Russians. So as you can see, I'm here, I'm alive, everything good. But that was very, very existential experience for me. But for me, I experienced only one time or a few times when I was in the East. For the communities in Ukraine, including the community in Mariupol, they experience this on a daily basis. The communities right now in Kharkiv, that there is an additional attack and Russia is trying to penetrate and push forward into Kharkiv, they experience this every day. Shells, explosives, drones. They can go out and go to the shopping center and being blown up. Kherson, also southern Ukraine, is being shelled and bombed constantly. And imagine that you want to live your life and continue living your life, because you cannot let the enemy win. You cannot stop doing what you're doing, or for example, to evacuate and move to a different country. Why should you? This is your homeland, and you should be there to protect your homeland and be there with your community and to make sure that the country and Ukraine is standing strong and still and standing there to protect not only themselves, but protect Europe, protect us, protect the West. So Ukraine plays a very big role right now. And as you see, people are suffering. And Mariupol it's one of the most devastating events that happen, still happening. Russia flattened the entire city. They were moving street by street, row by row, and flattening the entire city. So now I want to kind of pivot to the questions. So you guys asked a little bit more about what's happening right now in the city. We do not know. Mariupol right now is under Russian control. They took over everything, and we don't have any present right now in Mariupol. Most likely, I assume there's no hospitals that operate, and I doubtful that there's even any Ukrainian population that is still there. The level of atrocities and things that happen in that city, we do not know yet. People thought that the events that happened in Bucha, a city northern than Kiev, was horrific and horrible. We I think once we're going to learn more about what happened in Mariupol, the world is going to be shocked. There was different military groups, private military Russian groups, that were just shooting people just for their own amusement. And how do we know that? Because they were sharing this on TikTok, on social media, and stuff like this. So the information is there. So there's incredible, outstanding, mind-blowing war crimes that are happening, and probably will happen in Ukraine. And the world has access to this information. And this movie shows what is happening there at the beginning of the first 20 days in Mariupol, but still, we're not necessarily acting. And this is kind of the second question. I'm just reading it. So, okay, the people left behind. Again, as I mentioned before, we don't know what people left behind. As you saw in the movie, we lost connection with them because Russia basically shut down radio towers and any communication towers, so we don't know. Like even the community that I visited in around the Izum area, they were disconnected from the world for 7 months. So now we're talking over 2 years that the Mariupol, if there is any Ukrainians left behind, that are disconnected, that they don't know what's happening. Also, there's a lot of evidence that basically Russia came in and kidnapped kids and basically took kids from their families and displaced them in Russia. And basically, they were adopted by Russian families. And then basically, those kids are going through a brainwash in order to support the Russian Federation and to support the mission of Russia. And we have those thousands of cases of kids that were kidnapped from the occupied territories in Ukraine. So as of now, we have no idea how many people are currently in Mariupol, if at all, because again, the city is flattened. Okay, the impact of the film on our organization, if at all. Unfortunately, and this is a sad part, even though it's a Oscar-winning film, unfortunately, we don't see such a big impact on the support of Ukraine. As someone that did a lot of fundraising to the organization, to Ukrainian Patriot, the beginning of the war, when the invasion just happened, full-scale invasion just happened, there was people just looked for opportunities to help and donated money. But the more time we're in this war, people become tired. It's not in the news cycle anymore. People actually ask me if the war is still going. So this is the reality that we live in. I really hoped that that movie is really going to make an impact, but it's not. Unfortunately, Ukraine right now is not in the headlines, and Ukrainians are still suffer. There are still occupied territories. People are still being tortured. People being shelled. People being shot at. It's not even people, also animals. The whole environmental aspect of that. And this is the current reality in Ukraine. So, and I understand that, totally understand that. War can be very tiring. It's not fun to hear only sad news. And we have so many things that are happening right now. Like currently, both of my homelands are at war, Israel and Ukraine. And I'm dealing with that. So for people that don't have the personal connection to that, it's so tiring to hear about war. They want to continue living their life. I understand. But also we need to remember that Ukraine is not fighting only for Ukraine. Ukraine fighting for all of us, for the West, for Europe, for democracy. Because if Russia is going to take over Ukraine, what's going to happen next? Who's the country that's going to invade to a different country? And that's a great question. And probably ask yourself, what can I do to make a difference? What can I do to make a change and to impact? So good for you. You have something to do. You have opportunities. You have ways to help and support. First of all, donating money. donating money to an organization that actually operates in Ukraine. So if it's grassroots organization like Ukrainian Patriot, again, we are 501c3, so everything's tax deductible. You can go to our website and click on donate, and you have multiple options to donate. If it's via card, check, buns, gold, I don't know. You have multiple ways to donate. Again, you can come with us to the east, and you come with us to the front lines, but don't worry, we're going to take the responsibility over that, and we're going to do that. But definitely your financial contribution is really going to help. And to the fact that like $1, $1 goes a long way in Ukraine in the price of a lunch. So for example, $40, you can feed a family of 4 for a week. That's kind of the differences. So next time you go to grab a cup of coffee, think, how many families I can feed, or what can I contribute? What can I do? The second thing that you can do is reach out to your representatives. You have power. You have your representatives that you can reach out to, and you can definitely tell them to keep support Ukraine. So reach out to the representatives, tell them, yes, keep supporting Ukraine. It's important. Yes, all the support that comes from the US is saving lives. And if people are pushing back on what you say and say like, oh, America, we need to focus on America and the American dollars should stay here, you can tell them that the support that America provides to Ukraine, it not comes in a cash flow. It comes with ammunition. It comes with the Patriot system. It comes in so many physical things that make a very big difference in Ukraine. And think about what the benefit of that on in America. So basically, to create more ammunition and more of that, you create more job opportunities and you increase the economic aspect of that in the US. So that's a win-win situation for everybody. So yes, reach out to your representatives. And the third thing to do, put up your Ukrainian flag out there. There are Ukrainians that live in Colombia. Put your Ukrainian flag in your profile picture. Share with others that you support Ukraine. It really helps to keep the morale. When people in Ukraine hear about communities like Colombia that want to support them and think about them, that gives them the energy to fight and to stay alive and to keep going. So those small actions can really make a difference on people's life. Yes, the communities of Mariupol potentially no longer with us, but there are other communities out there in Ukraine that really relies on your help and your support to make a difference, to survive and thrive, and to make sure that we're winning this war. So share it with others so this message will go to as many people as possible. So together, we're going to make a difference. Thank you. Дякую.